Hey, it's Chris from Revenge Performance. We have been doing a lot of YouTube videos lately, and I'm sure hopefully some people found them informative, but obviously the production quality is not the best. You know, we're just shooting with GoPros and cell phones, which a lot of people do a really good job with that, but we're kind of not. So we're going to try to step things up a little bit. I did borrow my wife Jennifer's DSLR, and we have a tripod today, and so we're going to do some more car work with the tripod so that you guys can have more stable shots and more clear shots and hopefully a little bit better audio. If you hear some stuff going on right now, Braden's back there rebuilding the transmission for this black car. Eli, if you want to. So we have a 91 3000 GT front wheel drive SL on the lift right now, and we just started working on this I think about 2 days ago. We pulled the trans out of it. We're going to rebuild the trans. In fact, we're about halfway done with that, so I'm hoping by the end of the day at least we are getting this transmission back on that motor. We've had some requests for folks, particularly this morning I got one where he wants to know how to pull an automatic, and we did not record the pulling of that automatic, but we are going to record putting it back in. And it's pretty easy on an auto because you don't have a clutch to spline up, and there's a hook hole in the top of the transmission, and so you can actually pick it up with a engine hoist, and it's super easy. So we'll show you that. But today's video is going to be a little bit about the history of the company. We have done a few things like this before, but I don't know that I've ever sat down and really talked about what got me into 3000 GTs and stealths, and what got us to the point where right now we have 4 full-time employees working on these cars. We work on them every single day. There's a few other specialist shops in America, but we're one of the few that this is basically all we do. And we're able to do that because so many people freight their transmissions in. And so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to talk a little bit about the very first stealth that I had, and then what got me into rebuilding transmissions, and what has made that such a big part of my business and my life and all of our employees learning how to do all these transmissions for the last many years. So that's where we're going to start. So in 1997, the Dodge Stealths were out still, at least until 96. And my brother bought a 95 RT. It was all black, and it wasn't automatic, and it was a non-turbo. And back then, that was a really cool car. They're still really cool cars, but I mean, in the 90s, there was really nothing like it. The non-turbos made 222 horsepower out of a 3-liter dual overhead cam, 24-valve engine. And that was, as much as the Corvettes, basically, until the LS1 came out in 1997, and they got a big bump on the power on that. And then you had the turbo cars, and in 94 plus, they made 320 horsepower and 315 torque, all-wheel drive, 6-speed manual. I mean, even today, that combination is getting tough to buy brand new. I mean, a lot of cars got DCTs, which are awesome, or different kinds of automatics and things like that, or automatic actuated manuals. But to have a raw 6-speed, shifting it yourself, you're working the clutch yourself, in a car like that, I mean, even today, I think it's fairly unique. And so he drove that car for a number of years. He's pretty hard on cars, and probably taught me how to drive. And so, I mean, I don't mean like, oh, I run my car kind of hard sometimes. I mean, every single stoplight, that car was hitting 7,000 RPM. And so he bought the car with maybe 30, 40,000 miles on it. And by 80 or 90, it had burned up its first transmission. The autos on these cars are actually stronger than most people think, but the tuning strategies are really soft. And so it's designed to shift fairly quickly and reasonably well, but the cushion between the shifts is a lot. And so they don't have a lot of excess reserve clutch capacity. And so you really need to tighten up those shifts if you want them to last. So luckily, he had an extended warranty, and they replaced that transmission at least twice. By the time I bought the car, I was 16 or 17, maybe 18 years old. I was really young. I was just getting out of high school, and I bought the car from him, and the transmission was really on its last leg. So you put the transmission, grab the juice in it, and you try to limp it along and make it last. And I got a little more miles out of it, but it was really starting to feel unreliable, like it would take several seconds to go into gear sometimes. And it would have the second gear flare that a lot of them have, which is when you're at interstate speed and downshifts to second, it'll just go to completely the rev limiter until it grabs, and then it'll be okay. So that is a lot of the combined issues that made me want to do a manual swap. And that's what a lot of people do. So a lot of people swap to autos to manuals. Ironically, the front wheel drive manual in its stock configuration is actually weaker than the auto. You can actually start tearing gears up at those with 350, 400 horsepower type of things. Now you'll get the crew that's like, oh, well, XYZ, race those 700 horsepower, never had a problem. A racing environment is different than driving the car for 100,000 miles and expecting it to hold up. And the other weak area that those transmissions have is the differential cross pin will actually come loose, and that'll tear the case up. And you get a hole in your bell housing, and you start seeing this leak, and that's kind of the first indication that that pin's walking around, and transmission needs fixed. And so that's a little bit of a tangent, but it is what got me to learn how to rebuild manual transmissions. I got a manual transmission, put it in the car. It was not great. Okay, I bought a front-wheel drive swap off of eBay because I was 18. I didn't know every single little part that you needed, because you need the clutch pedals, you need the shifter, you need the clutch cable or the shifter cables, you need a clutch and a flywheel. In some cases, the axles are different. So a lot of little parts that 18-year-old me was willing to just, I don't know, I think it was $800 or something we paid for a manual swap kit to come in the mail, and we got all that. So that was my first pulling a transmission on these things. It was in my grandma's basement when I was 18. Pulled the transmission out, put the manual in it, did all the stuff you got to do. And I'm definitely not the first person to do a manual swap. Tons of people have. I could give you some advice on it, but there's a lot of people that have done them. And it's not super difficult. You do have to drill a hole in the firewall. It's kind of the hardest part because you're up in the clutch pedal area. It's pretty difficult to get up to, but with a right angle drill, it's not that bad. So, drove that transmission for a little while, drove a little too aggressively on some launches, and what do you know, I started hearing some clicking, and I was worried that that differential pin was coming out. So I started looking for another transmission. And I was putting a lot of miles on the car. I think I put like 60,000 on it in 5 or 6 years. So I drove it a lot. It was my daily driver. Basically all throughout college. That was my daily driver I was driving. And so I got another transmission, and I saw a part for sale. I don't remember. I think it was Team Rip. So Team Rip Engineering used to do these manual transmissions a lot. And they had... I've since learned it's probably a gear out of an Evo. It's like an Evo 3 or 4. But I got a 12% taller fifth gear. And so that helps with cruising. So these manuals on these cars, they turn a lot of RPM in fifth. I think it's something like 2,500 at 60. It's quite a bit. And so a 12% gear reduction in fifth actually just pretty much gives you that much more gas mileage. So I had to take the end cover off the transmission to put this gear in. And for somebody that hasn't done that before, that's pretty terrifying. You're tearing into a transmission that you paid for, and you're taking gears out of it, and you're putting them back, and you're sealing it up. But they pretty much went without a hitch, did that swap on there, and that was the transmission that stayed in that car for its entire period of time. I had some issues with it. I think I scarred up the axle bore where the seal fit in, because I was trying to be a preventative maintenance person and replace the axle seals. And one of them got scratched, and I had that transmission out once or twice trying to figure out this leak. And so I got really good at taking transmissions out of these cars, and which would definitely help me out later. So a little time goes by. I got married, had a little more money. We found a gentleman in New York selling a sandstone gray 99 converted. It was a 1992 Dodge Stealth Twin Turbo with a few mods, and I actually traded him that black car plus some money for it. And so we drove to Columbus, Ohio, met him, and picked that car up and came back. And instantly I started having transmission problems because the end case cap, that plug that sits at the end of the transmissions that falls out a lot on these, had fallen out. And I didn't even know that part existed. I mean, who would have bought a new car that didn't know that much about? So it lost all its transmission fluid at the time. So, we filled it back up. I found somebody that was selling that piece. We put that back together. And I drove it for a while, but it really started to have some trouble when I went drag racing. So we have a Benton Speedway down here. this 8th mile track about 20, 30 miles south of where I live. And I started drag racing it, learning how to launch, learning how to shift. And I really cut my teeth at that drag strip because it was a $10 Friday test and tune, and you could just make the rounds. I mean, there might have been 20 cars there, and you could just go pretty much as you wanted to. And so I would get 8 or 10 time slips in a night. And so working on my 60 foots. And I got to where I was getting in the 1.7s with street all season crappy tires. And so that was getting good, and I was getting the shifts in. But eventually shifted too hard, and second gear was just grinding real hard, like terribly. You couldn't shift at any speed at all. And so at the time, we're talking 2008 or 9. It was kind of a time frame in the cars' lives where their values were kind of reaching their valley in the pit. And also, like all the transmission parts were extremely difficult to get. Nobody wanted to touch the transmissions. And at the time, even paying the freight to get it to somebody was a significant factor in my life. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And so I think I ordered a first and second gear rebuild kit from a company called Cormax. Frank Cormax used to do these transmissions a lot. He may still, but I don't think he does as many as he used to. And got this kit in, managed to get the transmission out, took it all apart, started taking the shafts apart, and my second gear was all tore up, of course. And I'd actually ripped the teeth off the outer synchro. I wish I had an outer synchro. Do you have an outer synchro I can show you guys? I think I kept this outer synchro at my house, so I don't have it down here at the shop, but I can show you how the teeth are all torn off of that. So anyway, when you tear the teeth off the outer synchro, you have no synchronization because that's what the slider is pushing against with the springs and balls. It's this piece. So these teeth will actually tear off if you shift hard enough. And so some of the transmissions we have, we do a billet part for this, and it has 7 teeth instead of 6. And it's also made out of a lot better material, and so that stops that. And they're a little bit sharper too. So if you're getting a transmission from us, ask about that upgrade. And they're really high quality part. But so I started getting used parts, things like that. I couldn't afford new gears. Put it back together and put that trans back together, and it worked pretty good. But second gear was pretty notchy because I had to use some pretty poor quality second gear parts. So eventually, life goes on. Both my wife and I are making more money. Decided to do a 6-speed swap. And so I picked up a JDM 6-speed and began to learn that practically every single JDM 6-speed is damaged in some way. I always try to tell people, because there's like a rumor that cars after 60,000 kilometers in Japan are really hard to license and people just get rid of them. Maybe that's true. But I really don't think that every JDM transmission that you buy from an importer has 60,000 kilometers on it, because I've got some that were just tore up. And if they were 60,000 mile transmissions and they were, 60,000 quarter miles type of stuff, or 240,000 quarter miles, they were really torn up. So I took that apart, replaced all the second gear parts at great expense. You end up with your second gear bad and your hub and slider, and your inner and outer synchro rings are all tore up. You might spend $1,000 on second gear parts or more. So got all that together. Car drove great. Real happy with it, except it was just a little bit slow to shift. And so I actually ended up sending it off to a really good rebuilder in the United States that does these transmissions. And I got back. Second gear was better, but now all of a sudden I couldn't only get into fourth. And so I'm like, okay, well, tried reaching out to them, didn't really get any response from that. Okay. So I took it apart and replaced the parts and put new fourth gear stuff in it, and finally had a good shift in transmission. Okay. And so by now, I've rebuilt 3, 4, 5 of them just for myself. Learned the ins and outs of all these. Luckily, there's some great resources. A fellow named Gatecrasher helped get the original Japanese Getrag 440 and 446, the 5 and 6 speed transmission manual translated into English, and that was really helpful. And so kept getting a little better doing the transmission. So I thought to myself, why don't we build a spare? I found a good deal on one. I might have paid under $1,000 for another 6-speed. And I rebuilt it, placed all the synchros and the bearings and things, and it was just sitting on the workbench. And I just kind of posted up on social media how I rebuilt it, and somebody wanted to buy it. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm not a professional transmission rebuilder. I did the best I could. If you have an issue with this, obviously I'll stand behind my word, but, see what happens. Sent it out there, car drove great. Last I heard, he put many years and many miles on that car. Shipping great, no problem. And so slowly, I got a reputation for understanding and knowing the internals of these transmissions. And people wanted me to build them. And so I had a really good job. Actually worked 15 years in software development. I have a degree in computer science from SEMO. So that was actually a different line of work than I do now, but my brain is in the same place a lot of the time, figuring out problems. So when you're writing software, when you're debugging some Windows servers and Linux servers, you access parts of your brain that aren't all that different from trying to understand the intricacies, how a transmission works and what's wrong with it. And so it still stimulated part of my brain that made me feel accomplished and fulfilled. And so I was rebuilding these transmissions, and so I'd do a couple a month. And just in my spare time after work, I do these. And so I set up a little workbench. I think it might be that workbench behind you. No, not that one. It's probably, yeah, it's this one here. That workbench was in my house, in my home garage. And I rebuilt a lot of transmissions on that. And so time went on and time went on and time went on. I was doing more. I started doing transfer cases. It got to where I was doing, a transfer case or two a week. I mean, it was starting to pick up. And they were good. I haven't had any come back from, a long time ago, type of things. But I wasn't sandblasting them and such. We were painting them, and it was just me. Finally, one of my wife's co-workers had a son that needed a little work. His name was Liam. He's doing great, by the way. I think he's engaged to be married. Um, and he's actually went to seminary school. So I think he's gonna be a youth pastor, if I remember right. He's got kind of the perfect attitude for that. He's got a really big heart. I love that kid. He's an adult now. But he was helping me clean parts. I leased a tank from Safety Clean, in my home garage. I was like, is this okay? And like, oh yeah, that stuff's pretty safe. And I got the fireproof lids and such. And so we were rebuilding transmissions in the garage all of a sudden. And time went by. My IT company had been growing for a long time. We got up to where there was over 20 employees. I was the vice president of that company. And then we got some other vice presidents as well, some people that I'm still good friends with. Shout out to Austin and Tony and Darren. A lot of great people at that company. It was Chris Emmons' company. Can't leave him out either, of course. He's a good guy. But eventually the company was going to be merged and acquired into another company. And it wasn't that I was against that. And I love the growth opportunities. And the other company was many times our size. And so it was really a forward moving thing in my career. But I was like, man, I really kind of burned out on just doing websites because it's just never ending stress. Your work is on display 100% of the time. I was on a call system where if it was 3 in the morning and we had a server go down, it would wake me up, which was worth it because I always want to find a problem before the client does. I have a website company now, Maximum Impact Development. We do some websites, just not near as many as that other company. And so I have similar alarms now, but luckily, since we're doing so fewer, it's not as frequent. And, obviously I take really good care of our servers, and so we don't get a lot of calls. But the point was, I was getting burned out, and it just seemed like an opportunity. I got bought out at the company, and so it kind of gave me an opportunity to retire from that position in good standing, and have enough money that I felt like I could make the car thing work, and not, be eating ice cube soup for lunch and stuff like that. In my opinion, experience is everything. Working at that Element 74 is what the name of the company was. Working there taught me so much about leadership and management and working with clients and doing demos and things like that. I couldn't be on camera like this if it wasn't for that company. When I first started there, I was scared to pick up the phone. Like, you call a client up and I'll be nervous. And so I've completely changed since then, and I really appreciate it. And without any of that experience, I couldn't do what I do. But I will tell you, the easiest time to start a company is like when you're 18 or 19. Okay, you don't have huge bills, you don't got a mortgage, you don't have a wife, a husband, or a family to support, you don't have kids. Well, you might. I'm just saying, I didn't. And so the older you get and the bigger bills you have, the harder it is to take the risk to start your own company because, a company is not going to necessarily cash flow all the time. It's not going to cash flow the week you start it. Okay, it's going to take a long time to get your reputation up. Unless you're able to get like venture capital or a big loan or something, it's pretty tough to bootstrap a company overnight and start paying yourself a decent salary. So I was fortunate, but I'm saying if you got the urge to start your own company, maybe start when you're like 22. It'll be a lot easier. But again, I would have missed out on all that experience. So I'm not speaking if that's going to work for you or not, but it is a disadvantage to starting a company when you're like 35 and you have a lot of big life stuff going on. It's a disadvantage to take that leap. But luckily, due to that buyout, I was able to do that. And my wife, Jennifer, is really understanding. And she was okay with our finances being less than they used to be for a while. And I couldn't have done it without her being like that. She didn't, she was always behind me. She's still behind me. I have bad weeks like everybody else. And she's my biggest cheerleader on that. So I quit my job and we were selling car parts and we were doing transmissions and it was me and Liam. And then another fabulous young man named Hunter came on board and he was working with me too. And sooner or later, my wife's kind of like, you can't have a 6 foot tall spray cabinet and a 50-ton press and a safety cleaning machine and 12 foot of workbenches and stuff in our 2 car garage and be able to like put cars in there too. I mean, for a long time we'd clean up and she could still pull her car in at night, but it's like that kind of got out of the window. And so, and then, the neighbors weren't super thrilled when I'm, working on crates and stuff in the driveway and loading the truck. And, uh, plus Liam and Hunter were great, but I wouldn't want to hire somebody I didn't know real well to just come work at my house because it was just in my attached garage. I mean, you literally just walk into my kitchen and get a drink or whatever. And so it's kind of like, if I'm going to be hiring more employees and growing the business, we got to get a place to go. And so Austin actually, he knew somebody named Beverly Pierce, who's a great woman as well, and she had basically a shed for it. And we went and looked at it. It wasn't big, but compared to what we had, so it was like 1,500 square feet. The rent was extremely affordable because that was the big thing. It's like I couldn't go pay 1,500, 2,000, whatever, $3,000 a month on rent and take that kind of risk. Or overnight we would have to have stream of people coming in doing brake jobs and oil changes and stuff. And that's not really where I wanted to be. So we got this little shop, this little shed out there. It was 8 minutes from my house. It was really convenient. It was really good for rebuilding transmissions. The problem was there was basically a single entrance. There was basically no parking, and we really couldn't take cars. And so I would work on my car there, okay. We worked on my friend Anthony Dunning's car there. We did some stuff, but I really couldn't take cars. We couldn't put a lift in. The ceilings weren't tall enough for a lift. The entrance was offset from where we would want to work on cars anyway, so it was a real hassle to get a car in there and do a 900-point turn, straighten up to be out of the way. And the cars were always so close to the transmission work. I had great fear of putting a ding in them or just getting too dusty, that sort of thing. And so eventually Beverly had decided that she kind of wanted her garage back, and that's fine. Her son was getting to be of an age where he was doing dirt bike racing and things like that, and so he wanted a place to work. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fair. We'd been there, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and so we started looking. There was some really expensive places that was out of the budget, and then there was a place in near the old shop that was pretty close to our budget, but it was almost bigger than we needed. I think the main building was just the one building was like 4,000 or 5,000 feet type of thing. And so it was going to be a lot of work to get that where I needed it to be. And I didn't feel like I had the energy to do all that and run the business and everything. And so we kept looking, and we found this place down in Advance. Our lovely landlord Tim, he had a good price on the place in Advance, and it already had this lift, so we didn't have to immediately get a lift. And so you moved to the place in Advance. So that was the third shop we were. So we were at a third shop. Started out in my 20 by 22 2-car garage. I don't know why Jen put up with that for as long as she did, except for she loves me. Because, like, I mean, I had Liam in the living room making coil-on plug kits on the floor. I mean, we'd get wires everywhere. Her garage, she pretty much couldn't park in. She couldn't come home and just, relax in a house robe or something because we might have employees there. So that was long overdue. We got to the second shop. We had great success. I don't know, but we did hundreds of transmissions and transfer cases and such at that shop. Picked up these two gentlemen, Braden and Eli, behind the camera here. Braden's building the transmission for that 3000 GT right now. And it was a great time at that shop. But again, eventually her son wanted the shop for himself. And it was fortuitous because it was kind of a point where we either needed to grow or not. Every business, everything has got a point where it's like, we either need to take this to the next level or it's going to kind of die on the vine. And that's, I think that's one of the challenging things about business and why they say if you're not growing, you're dying. It's really true. And sometimes you get comfortable in a certain spot, but you can't stay there, okay? In the long run, you're going to have competition. You're going to want to pay your employees more. Cost of living keeps going up. Presumably, you're going to want to make more at some point. And you're also going to want to do more interesting stuff. You can only rebuild so many transmissions and be super interested in it, I still am because I don't do as many start to finish as I used to. But I could tell even some of the employees here are kind of like, it's cool to work on our auto now because we work on so many sticks. Or we built a TH400 the other day. And one of the guys was like, this is the most interesting thing I've done in a year, And you got to get your employees having interest in what they're doing because I know we don't want it to get completely, mind-numbingly, I'm just doing these steps over and over, and this is my life. I want things to be interesting and growth opportunities for everybody, stuff like that. People here are learning how to TIG weld, because why not? We have the equipment, we have the work, obviously we have the supervision. I'm pretty good at it now. So there's just a lot of skills you can pick up if you're willing to grow. And so we moved to this shop, and oh my God, it was a nightmare. So shout out to Brent Weichling and Eli and Chase and Matt and Braden. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I'm sorry, but that was a nightmare. It was 100 the whole week. We prayed for rain. One day it poured down raining, and we just stood out there like a chicken and stared at the rain and cooled off. It was terrible.
And your brother's tractor, too.
Yeah, we had my brother's tractor, my brother Joel. Can't believe I forgot that. And my brother Sean that transported that tractor or helped load it up for us. And Brent drove it down. So we were rented a U-Haul truck, one of the bigger, just normal box trucks. I don't know, I think they're 26 feet or something.
24.
20, whatever it is, 24 feet, Eli's telling me. We filled that truck up with pallets like 5 times. Not just including the the big press. That press weighs 900 pounds. Can you show that, Eli? So that's a press from Redline stands. We kind of upgraded presses as we upgraded buildings. Started out with a 12-ton Harbor Freight. That's my first transmission got rebuilt on that. Then I got a 20. Then I wanted to do transfer case spools, and a 20 is unsafe to do that with. So we got a 40, that air over hydraulic 40. That was great, but so slow that when you were doing transmissions, you prayed you had the 20-ton back. So I got a 50-ton. This has an electric pump on it, and it's fast. Like it's almost as fast as a normal 20-ton or 12-ton press you're running by hand. So, but that thing weighs 900 pounds. So it was like all my brother's tractor could do to lift that up and get it in the back of the U-Haul. And I mean, we were moving. I don't know. I think we made 30 trips. And the old shop was 40 minutes away. And so everybody worked themselves half to death. I think Brent stayed for the week because he lives a little bit away from here. And we worked like 100 hours that week. Morning to night. And Brent and I are 40, and we're still consider ourselves young, but boy, those were hard days. And it was hot. It was just soaking hot. But we were a great team. Nobody complained. We got donuts and stuff and hung out and had lunch. It was a great experience. It just was a lot of work. And so we moved everything and we realized how much stuff we had, trailers and trailers, and it's just incredible. But we got it all moved in. And I mean, 3, 4 days later, the next week, we were working again. The shop wasn't perfect, but we got stuff arranged enough that we could start doing it because I got clients that want their stuff back. And as a business, you can't go weeks and weeks without making money. And so we got right back on it. And that's kind of at where we're at today. Today we're taking a lot of cars in. We've done 4 or 5 big jobs so far this year. And I think we got 4 cars here right now. And I mean, like, engine out, Haltech full rewires, camshafts, cylinder heads, transmission rebuilds on the same car, transfer cases, rear ends, drive shafts, exhaust work, custom welding, tuning. We tune chrome, we tune Haltech. I do a little bit of HP tuners on my own stuff. So, like, besides the paint, we're kind of doing everything. For really complicated engine stuff, Ray Pampina and Scott Merkel are the men to talk to, and we can help you get talking to them too. We sell their parts. But right now we got a motor that we're doing the rods in because it's got stock rods and forged pistons, but he wants to make a lot of power, so we're putting all the rods in it, and we're using ball and race engines just a little bit closer here just to balance the motor and do some honing and check the block for cracks and stuff like that and just measure everything out. So we're starting to do a little bit of engine work. But if we did like a stroker, I would send it to Ray, and we would just freight that over there type of thing. So it's 2025. I incorporated this company in 2018. I think I quit my job right when COVID was coming out, which was good and bad. Okay. So COVID was obviously, a change in this country and a disaster for many people. Luckily, I haven't been tremendously personally affected by it. I think I got it once, but I didn't get that sick. And we haven't lost anybody super close to the family. But I feel bad for everybody who did. But that was like right when we fired the company up, and when I quit was right when they were doing all the work from home stuff at that company I quit. And so I was kind of lucky in that regard because I was just working at home with 1 or 2 people that I saw all the time. And so none of us got sick extra with COVID. But fast forward to the day, we're looking at bigger and better things. We're going to be doing more cars. I want to get another lift in here. Luckily, there's an adjacent building here on the property. If I work out a deal with the landlord, that building is 50 by 100, so it would be another 2 times onto this. If we did that, I'd probably do the drivetrain work here and then move the car work over there, and we could really take on some stuff. We got Eli, our shop foreman, has recently graduated from all his training and his advanced training from the National Guard of Missouri, which we really like to support veterans. Brent's a veteran. Brent was in the Air Force National Guard for Missouri, and he did a tour in Afghanistan, and he missed the birth of his second daughter. So luckily he came home safely. He has a few issues, unfortunately, with his hearing and things. Luckily, he came home safer than a lot of folks do, and so we really appreciate his service. I appreciate Eli training himself to be of service to this country, and if he ever needs to, we can text the call up and fully support him and make sure he's got a job when he comes back home. So didn't mean to make this a PSA on veterans, but if you know a veteran, thank them today, or if you know someone that's considering the service, if it's right for them, encourage them to do so. We had another employee here, Matt, and he's actually just joined the Marines, and he finished basic training, and he's doing some advanced combat training now. And he's going to be starting up next month. So we're all military here. We love you guys. We're all 3000 GT and Stealth here. We love you guys. These cars are just really special, and they matter to me still, even after owning them for, what's it been, 25 years almost. I've been involved in these things. It's hard to find someone to do things to them. And I don't blame normal places for not wanting to do big things to them, just because they're complicated, they're rarely stock, they've usually been modified, sometimes really good, sometimes in confusing and bewildering ways. And so it's a lot to try to take on when it's not something you do every day. So I'm glad to have a place for them, and I'm glad you guys trust us to do them. And so we stand behind our work, and I could never sleep at night knowing we didn't do a great job on things, but I couldn't do anything at all if we didn't have awesome customers. So I hope you'll stick around for the next 5 or 10 years of this company, where we're going to go. We have our sister company, Parts Legion, and we're trying to sell a lot of car parts for a lot of different cars there so that we can keep doing these 3000 GTs and Stealths. And so by selling parts and having recurring revenue, it takes some stress off having to keep the lights on and having to try to get air conditioning for the shop and having to make sure everybody has a livable wage here and is happy and fulfilled in life. And so if you know anybody that needs car parts for anything, please go to Parts Legion. This is not a huge money-making scam or anything. It's just, honestly, it'll let us keep doing this. And because we can support ourselves on this, but it'd be so much easier if we sell more parts. And so check that out. If you know anybody, we can get you some custom coupons and discounts for things. We got 600,000 parts on partslegion.com. I know the search needs improved on it, so if you have a little trouble finding something, let us know. And we also have real-time inventory. So if it says we got 12 of those things, then that's 12 of them that can ship. And so you don't have to worry that you're going to order it and we're going to come back later and say that that doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. We also have free shipping on everything to the United States that's not a really big freight item. So if you got to send an engine or a transmission, then I can't cover that for free. But anything else, pretty much. Even wheels and tires, we ship them for free. So please stick around. I'm excited to see what this company will do. I'm excited to see what our employees will do. And they'll grow up. You know, most of them are fairly young, in their 20s. They'll grow up and start families of their own, and I'm just excited about that. And same reason I liked being a leader at my last job is because I can help folks learn, and I can help them be better critical thinkers, and I can help them have a positive outlook on life. And so with that said, I'll quit talking. I know you guys are probably tired, but we're going to have more actual car-related content very soon. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel. We have something like 1,100 subscribers right now. Well, let's see if we can get that 1,500 by the end of the year. That would be awesome. You know, tell your friends we're trying to work on higher quality content. We're going to be doing content on tuning. We'll be doing content on pulling transmissions. We might do some more content on building the transmissions. Just some tips and tricks and things to watch out for, because we also sell all the parts for these drive lines. So if you want to rebuild your transmission yourself, that's fine. I mean, we've shipped transmissions to Abu Dhabi, we've shipped them to Australia, we've shipped them to Canada, we've shipped them to most of the United States, we've shipped them to France. But if you find it inconvenient to ship your transmission in and out, or you're just a tinker and you want to learn, we got the rebuild kits that are the same parts we got, the same synchros. We include custom made in the United States stainless steel shims for the different bearing races that you need to be able to set up, seals, brand new bolts. You know, why use crusty old bolts when you can just have a brand new bolt kit, roll pins, all the good stuff. The exact same stuff we use and stand behind every day. And we don't like paywall information either. So I chat with people on Facebook all the time if they got trouble rebuilding something. So again, I've talked too much. So we're going to get back to work. I got a lot of things to get to today, but this has been Chris for VENGE Performance. We got Eli behind the camera, and we got Braden and Tessa over there building transmissions right now. So stay tuned for more. VENGE Performance is the place to get the parts and the advice to help right the wrongs on your vehicle. We partner with the industry leaders in parts distribution and warehousing to get you the best possible prices, the widest selection of parts, and the fastest shipping. With our real-time inventory on our website, if we say we have it in stock, it's ready to ship. From us or from our many national distribution partners. With hundreds of thousands of parts available, I guarantee we can get revenge on your ride.